you've had a lot of different roles in your kind of racing tenure, so to speak. You've got the current role at PitFit, which I think is what a lot of people know you for. You've got, I believe, I want to say the only person we've had on this show or on any Kart Chaser show to both actively hold and have held a Guinness World Record. Um, and along those lines, you've run 24-hour races, which as good as Ryan Norberg or Caden McQueen or Danny Formal or CDP. We were talking pre-show about all the accolades CDP has had. I don't think any of them have Ironman a 24-hour race before, and I don't want to put myself in a bind on that one, so I won't say it like as a factual statement. But man, I mean, not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times. What was it? 4? It's at least 4, no?
It's lucky number 7. Yeah.
7.
Done 7 24-hour. Well, if you combine races and record attempts and all that stuff, I've Ironman 24 hours 7 times. Yeah.
Wow. So what got you into that?
Man, it's I don't even know, to be honest. I started karting back in 2000, and had some mild success doing pavement oval karting in North Carolina. Ran at Orange County Raceway, Concord, RIP, both of those places. But won a couple races here and there, and ran in the top 5 in local points and that sort of thing, but didn't have a lot of success at national level. And then I went to school and just took some time off from racing to go through school, and I was working as an engineer on another team at that point. So I was kind of focusing my energies on school and on being an engineer for Allison Legacy car. And then after school, I ended up working for AIM for, you guys all know him as Micron. So I spent a couple of years working for Micron and got back into, or sort of got into sprint karting as a result of that, into the 2-stroke stuff, which I think was where I kind of always wanted to try to race. Oval karting just was a lot more accessible in the 2000s in North Carolina. This was long before Trackhouse existed, before Carolina Motorsports Park had a kart track. Oval karting was where it was, and the pavement scene was still really strong. It's pretty much non-existent now. It's all, everything on oval is dirt, but pavement oval was huge back then. So that was what I did, just because I could start right away, and had a lot of fun with it. But kind of always wanted to do the 2-stroke stuff. So when I got the chance to actually give it a shot, did some races there, and again, just I can hold my own, I think, in a go-kart, but I'm not going to go win any. Was never going to go win any big national races or anything like that. So I knew that my future was in what my chosen profession at the time was, engineering, and not in driving. So to me, just driving became something I did for fun. And at that point, it was still really difficult to do it regularly. So I kind of had this idea of well, what if I do an entire season of racing just all in one day? And I think there was an article in eKarting News about some guy who this is back in probably 2009, something like that, 09 to 2010, somewhere in there. And eKarting News put out an article about some dude in the UK who did 24 hours solo and broke the world record. And I was like, oh, it looks pretty cool. And I'm 20, 25 at the time, something like that. I'm young, love fitness, love racing. I was like, oh, I could probably do that. And at the very bottom of the article, sure enough, David Cole had put he'd put like a survey. Do you think you could do it? Yes or no? And I answered yes. And I get a text from DC that just says, prove it. So I was like, all right, man, you're on. So I got everything together to, I worked on that for, probably a year and a half, like before I could even get onto the track over there at Newcastle to try it. So the first one was a big success. And I was like, well, maybe we can do one indoor as well, because those should be different records. And sure enough, they were. So went and did one for indoor, and then somebody broke it. So I was like, well, I'll go back and do it again. So I did it again. And then after those were done, I just kind of came across the 24 Hours of America event. Didn't even know it existed. And then kind of came across it and reached out to the organizers there and said, hey, can I do this solo? And they said, yeah, sure. Sounds good. Like, if you can pay your entry fee, then you can do whatever you want. So did that at Charlotte Motor Speedway, which was super cool. It was before they repaved it. So that one was pretty brutal. That was a tough one. But it gained a little bit of traction. And the next year they had a solo class for us, and I got to race against two other solo guys. And we did that for a couple of years. So it just kind of kept sort of growing on itself and turning into something new after that. And then the big like cherry on top was out in the UK in Milton Keynes. There's a kart track out there that does a 24-hour race every year, and it's a decently big deal in like the rental karting arena out there. And a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go race it solo, and he was willing to pay for me to do it. So I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And I asked the organizers there if I could race like just as a like a normal entry. So when we did the 24 Hours of America here, our fuel stops had to be longer, just to separate us from the rest of the pack. So we're only racing with the solos. But they let me race there just as a regular kart. So there was no delineation between me and the rest of the other 25 karts, or the other 24 karts that were in my class. So that was a really cool challenge to me. I wanted to see if I could, sprint the whole 24 hours and not take any extended rests, at least no more than what everybody else was going to be doing, and see where I ended up. And that was a really cool experience. It went super well. I was absolutely torched at the end of it, and haven't had the desire to do it again since.
Yeah, well, you kind of answered my next question there. I was like, when are we going to see Trey try another 24-hour race?
Highly unlikely.
Unfortunate, man.
Highly unlikely. Yeah.
But no, so that was at Daytona, no? In
the one in Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was there's a few Daytona tracks out there, but yeah, it was Daytona, Milton Keynes.
24 hours at Daytona.
So I've done 24 hours at Daytona here as well.
Crazy.
That was the first 24 Hours of America where we had a solo class, was at the kart track at Daytona. And we did a slightly different layout. So instead of, when you come around, turn 5 and head towards the far end, instead of doing a 180 and going through that little horseshoe section, we just went straight onto the back straightaway. So it was a lot of fun. That corner was just like a small lift and then back down and huge sweeper, which was awesome. And then instead of running the final corner that National normally runs, we did the little chicane that was right before it. So slightly different layout, but yeah, ran 24 hours there.
Yeah. What engine package was that one on?
That was a 4-stroke.
I see.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you've done, if I remember correctly, the first one you did was on a Rotax package, no?
Yeah. This was pre X30. This was back in 2011.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before. It was your first time driving in the rain in that race,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
that was fun.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I had because in oval karting you don't race in the rain. So I'd never driven a kart in the rain before, and I got to figure it out at I think it was around like 1:32 in the morning, and that would have put me like 16 hours in at that point. So I had been driving for 16 hours, and if I'm sure everybody who's listening or watching to this knows that Newcastle doesn't have lights. So we had put up like 6 contractor lights. So like the little tow behind diesel generator lights that go up on the highway. We had 6 of those, which over a 1-mile circuit is not very many. So I had a little like motorcycle headlight on the front of the cart with its own battery. And I had a little just like light switch on the front on the driver fairing. Super cool, super tricked out. I loved it. Shout out on that one to Jim Conlon, Adrenaline Fix Karting. They got me. They supported that whole effort, and they did a awesome job. Yeah, they rigged up a like chain lube system for me to lube the chain mid stint, and a headlight for me to make it through the night. But yeah, it was like I said, 16 hours in, good and tired by that point. Had never driven a kart in the rain, and it started raining. But thankfully, I came up to test earlier in the summer, and the Pan Am series was racing right before I tested, and they were racing in the rain. So I was there watching, and I made sure to pay very close attention to the technique as much as I could, just in case that happened. So thankfully, when it came time for me to actually race in the rain, I was on the fast track at Newcastle, and within like 4 or 5 laps, I was down to like a couple seconds off a normal rain race pace, which was all we really needed to do. I didn't need to push it any harder than that, but I was happy with how that part went.
very impressed. I mean, I think it was a couple weeks ago we talked to Justin White about kind of his first shifter race being or his first rain race in a shifter coming like in the final at Pittsburgh, and how difficult that was. But you add in the fatigue of driving Rotax for 16 hours under the lights, but the lights aren't really that useful.
Oh, they were terrible.
I mean, I mean, was there ever a point where you were like, "Oh no, I'm gonna bend this"? Like,
no, actually, I mean, it was definitely probably one of the most like mentally taxing things I've ever done. But yeah, I had one of my biggest fears come true earlier in that event, which me, big irrational fear of bees. And I got stung by a yellow jacket in the left leg going into I-70. So I had already,
oh my God.
It made me like lock up, and I spun backwards and went off at I-70, and had to push the cart back on and get it going again. When I came back in, they said, "What happened?" And I was like, "I got stung by a yellow jacket."
That's absolutely wild. I mean, I've driven karts now at this point for 12 years. I've never been stung by a bee.
Yeah.
I've heard this.
I mean, it just surprised me. It was just on my left leg, like on my thigh. And I even saw it. Like I looked down, I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, come on, this can't be happening." And then as soon as I start cresting that little bridge right before you hit the brake zone for I-70, it got me, and I put my left foot down hard on accident and just spun it off.
So what I'm hearing on this is we needed the Justin Haley kit for bee removal.
Yeah.
On your cart, we needed the WD-40 and the fly swatter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%.
Should have known, man. Should have known.
If I had, I'd have had him there, ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, but you talked about working for Micron and AIM back in the, what was it, late 2000s into 2010 or so?
Yeah, it was. I was there in 07 and 08. Yeah, right after I graduated from school.
Yeah. So, that was kind of a transition, like you mentioned, back into the karting paddock. And then you worked as an engineer for a good amount of time,
Hmm.
post Virginia Tech, post kind of studying and whatnot. You get into like a mechanical engineering being your full-time job.
Hmm.
What led to you kind of going back to the fitness side of things, or I guess going to the fitness side of things, and what was kind of the motivation behind that?
Yeah. I mean, we literally just talked about it. It was that event. It was doing that record attempt. So to get ready for it, I'd always been in shape, but I wanted to train specifically for this for, a year or so leading up to it. And that was what I did. I was able to get hooked up with a trainer. I was living in Maryland at the time. And got to work a couple times a week with somebody there, and he was giving me programs to follow. And then I reached out to PitFit to see if they would be interested in helping. So Jim Leo, he's the founder of PitFit, and obviously my business partner now. But he was running the show back then, and I reached out to him and asked if there was anything they could do to help. And he was into it. He had me come by their Indy facility. This is when they were in the old facility up there, and do some workouts, do some cognitive training with them before I went and did my test. And then Jim actually was pretty much my physio for the event. So in that whole process of training and going to PitFit, working with Jim, working with my coach back in Maryland, I got this I fell in love with it. I thought it was super cool. And I also got this thought like, man, this is something that I think I could be really good at. I think this has enough of my interest and combines multiple passions of mine. I know it's something I would be super dedicated to, and just kind of analyzing the process and the science that was going into it, it really intrigued me, and it was something that I wanted to at least explore. So after the record attempt, I looked at like what kind of credentials do I need to get? What kind of certifications do I need to get? I looked at that, studied for, I would say it was probably about 2 years I spent studying, just getting up early and studying for an hour or two before I started work. Thankfully, at that time, I was working from home, which was kind of unique at the time. Like, it was 2012. Nobody was really working from home in 2012, but thankfully I was able to. So it gave me a little bit of additional freedom to study in my off time, and got my certification. And we moved here to Charlotte, and I did both jobs for a while, as you saw, where I had guys showing up to Mountain Island Fitness to do some training, and I'd pop out of the front office where I was doing my engineering job, come out, train somebody for an hour or so, go back into doing my engineering job.
How difficult was it to manage the two of those at the same time?
It wasn't too bad. I think I had such a, you get, the energy you get when something's new, that additional, just, it's almost like a shot of adrenaline. I could stay at the gym until 8:30 training people in the evening, and I had that energy for it because it was very new. And thankfully at the time, the projects I was working on with my engineering job, I had been working on them for quite a while. So it wasn't, it was somewhat second nature. I could manage that relatively easily. And they gave me a lot of freedom. That company that I was working for, they didn't really, I didn't have to sit there and like move the mouse every 15 minutes. So they knew I was sitting at my computer. It was very much, results based and deadline based setup. So as long as I was doing all of the work that I was supposed to be doing, they didn't really care when or where I did it. So it made it really made the transition relatively smooth for me to be able to manage doing both of those at the same time.
Yeah. And so initially you had Trey Shannon Fitness
Yeah.
was kind of the OG brand. Um, you you started working, I would say, like, what was it? 2015 was kind of the first couple clients you had with Colin and with
Yeah, it
John.
started in 2014 with Tom Long.
Tom Long. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Tom was the first one.
Tom's the OG. Yeah, started with Tom Long, and then he got me connected with Tyler Cook, and then some of my other guys right after that. They joked that Tyler Cook should be on a commission because he brought me quite a few. But yeah, started working with Colin soon after that, and it was just whatever we could do. Like I was training Tom at a rec center. I was training Tyler at Mountain Island Fitness. I was going to Colin's house to train him and John Edwards, and it was just sort of I was all over the place. And thankfully, I have a very understanding and supportive wife that was all about it. And she's like, "Yeah, you do what you need to do." And she wanted to see it succeed just as much as I did. So it was it made the running around and managing multiple engagements, relatively not easy, but a little bit more straightforward, much easier than they could have been for sure. But yeah, it all started with Tom Long. I always think it's weird that I moved here to Charlotte thinking, oh, I'll basically be like the NASCAR version of PitFit. And when I started Trey Shannon Fitness, and like my first 5 clients were sports car drivers and go-karters.
Yeah, I was gonna say eventually you kind of got into the NASCAR market around the time that I ended up kind of starting.
Yeah,
Would
it
have
was right
been,
around then. Yeah.
yeah, early part of 2017. But at some point, you kind of made the big decision. You sort of committed to this full time. You went to the Podium Performance Fitness brands.
Mm-hmm.
You eventually got your own space. I mean, walk me through those steps and kind of, I guess you had already kind of committed, I would say, in some sense to kind of flipping your life into this in some sense,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of what led you to go down the full path as you ended up going?
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, that was always the plan. Once we got to Charlotte and I started doing this, it was always with an eye towards leaving engineering and doing this full time. I was getting pretty close to being able to do that in early 2017. I was like, okay, this is probably the year. Like this is when this is when we're going to make the move. And then the ultimate catalyst for it though was something with the engineering job. Um, the company I was working for, they got a contract with Catawba Nuke, which is a power station here in the Charlotte area. And my boss said, "We want you to be the on-site person there." And that was when I said, "All right, cool, I quit." Because I knew that if I had to be on site, at a power station, I couldn't be at the gym training anybody. So it was decision time, and I didn't quit right then and there. But within like that month, I handed in my resignation and went full time to this. So it was right around October. It was like October of 2017, and my first day of being fully self-employed, I drove down to Road Atlanta for Petite Le Mans. So it was pretty sweet timing. It wasn't bad.
Absolutely. And then, everything else kind of writes itself in a sense. For a while there after you kind of went full time, you were still working out of Mountain Islands.
Mm-hmm.
How big was it to get that first property that was kind of your own in the sense of like being able to work out of the current facility that you have in Cornelius?
Yeah, man, that was huge. That was something that I had never really envisioned being a business owner, having a space that I went out and found and built up the way I wanted it. I never envisioned that when I was in school or working as an engineer or whatever. Like it, It was something that just, almost caught me by surprise that was the route that I wanted to go down, but it really was. And I had a huge passion for it. So being able to open up in Cornelius, I searched for that place for like a year because I wanted to make sure it was in a good space and in a good location on the map, a good spot for everybody to get to. I know it made your drive a little bit longer.
Whatever.
I still feel bad about that, but uh
Hey, I would have never gotten introduced to One Loco though. So
oh yeah. Yeah. You
priorities.
can't sleep on One Loco for sure. Yeah, 100%. That's we can all thank CDP for that one.
Absolutely. No,
I recommend something. You go and eat it. Take it to the bank.
Yeah. I will say, to be specific, Derek was on me for probably a solid like month about going to One Loco. So
yeah. Well, CDP told him and me about it.
Yeah. So they both get credit in my book. But
yeah, it's a good spot to be in. And it was where, it was right up along the lake and along 77. And I thought I knew location was going to be important. So I was trying to be patient and find the right spot. And at the time, PitFit wanted to be in Charlotte as well. So in my mind, I was kind of racing against PitFit. I was trying to beat PitFit to the punch, which I ultimately managed to do. And I don't know if that was all just a ploy from Jim to get me to go ahead and do all the hard work and then approach me later with a partnership. And if it was, man, well played. But yeah, about a year after I opened up in Cornelius under Podium Performance Fitness, Jim gave me a ring and wanted to explore a partnership, and I told him I was all all for it, and let's talk, and here we are. So it was something that I never at any point shied away from. I PitFit's always been the absolute gold standard in motorsport human performance. So for me to be in a position where I had my own space and my own business and my own project in that realm, for him to reach out and want to work together was huge. I mean, it was I was tickled to death.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because from my lens, right, like this all kind of happened around the time where I went off to college, and I leave in early part of 2021, or I guess summer of 2021. We have the blue and kind of, or what was it, kind of like turquoise and green branding of Podium.
Yeah, it was like a teal and green. Yeah.
I come back, giant PitFit on the wall.
Everything's orange.
Yeah. Every time I came back for like a year straight, it was like more orange. And then for a solid like year and a half, the like free weights were still like Podium branded.
Yeah.
And it was like that was the last bit that was like still yet to change.
Last year I finally got those switched over.
Yeah. So no, I mean it's awesome to hear kind of the 8-year, well, I guess it's kind of like a 7 to 8 year journey of like going from the origins of moving to Charlotte to kind of talking to Jim about PitFit.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's turned into a 13-year journey. You're kind of at, I don't want to say a peak because that implies that there's not better things in the future, but you've certainly continuously developed the brand, continuously developed kind of the location in Cornelius, the partnership you guys have. I mean, you look forward to the next few years. I mean, what do you see is next, kind of the next steps for PitFit? I'm going to stay focused, I would say, on your side, but also kind of looking at the brand as a whole.
Yeah. It could go in any number of directions, to be honest. We definitely want to continue to expand our track support. That's been a big project for us over the last couple of years. And for the IMSA endurance season this year, we'll be working with three different manufacturer teams in the IMSA paddock. So that's a big move for us, and a really good improvement from where we've been. So we want to continue to build that and kind of build our network of physios around the country and be able to, kind of be, our goal is to be the go-to in that realm, just like we are on the fitness, the in-house fitness side. And then, from there we can, we want to continue building our facilities and looking at the different avenues that we have for that, whether it be, introducing driver camps or, maybe expanding a little bit with, we've done some projects with indoor karting facilities where, we do essentially like a karting. It's like you do a workout and you do some karting, and that's been a big hit up in Indianapolis. And we're looking at maybe doing that down here and possibly even some other places around the country. And, there's a few other things that we have sort of lying in wait for when the time is right, and I'll hang on to those until we decide to really go for it with them. But we definitely have a few things that that are still in the planning phases and could be pretty big game changers for us going forward.
It's like the papaya army blocking the McLaren today.
Exactly.
Gotta make sure the photographers can't get in and see
It's in the job description, man. Yeah, that's one of the required job skills.
Except instead of having a whole team, you have Trey Shannon on a podcast.
It's just just me and how tight-lipped I can be.
Real. No, but I mean, you look back on this journey, on the few years. What's one of your favorite moments that you can think of from working with drivers, working in either location over the course of the last 10 years that you've had?
Man, looking back, the Christmas relays are always a great time. And just seeing kind of the camaraderie that can be built there, and just what's come of like the culture that I've been trying to build inside the facility. Those are always a lot of fun. One of my favorites was definitely a certain go-karter getting a penalty for being too aggressive on the last lap and trying to make a move into turn 3 at GoPro. You laugh, man, but that was a big accomplishment for me as a coach to know that I got through to you and we made a change, in just the way you attacked on the last lap. I was so excited that you were aggressive enough to get a penalty for that. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
Yeah. That's a rare one, by the way, to hear. So some backstory on this, I guess, is kind of needed. When I first came to Trey, like when I was 14, I was racing in junior. I had this tendency of I would always end up second, third, fourth because it wasn't aggressive enough. And between you and my dad, the two of you guys, I think over the course of a year or two, consistently drilled into my head, like, be more aggressive, like, take more chances. Yeah. And then eventually you guys were like, just get a penalty, man. Like, I think the first penalty I got that I earned, which I think was that one, you guys were both like proud of me for getting
We're high-fiving each other, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what I made you do in the gym to help you with that?
Oh, man.
Because I definitely do. So I noticed that you had a tendency to kind of like size things up.
Oh,
right?
Where you would throw in like random things.
And whenever we would do an exercise, let's say we were doing like a dumbbell bench press, right? Something simple, you would kind of circle the bench a couple of times and then sit down, do the exercise. So I remember I was like, hey man, no more circling, no more sizing up. When we're doing an exercise, you're just going to sit down, you're going to do it. No thinking about it. And just trying to get you to be more like instinctual as opposed to overthinking everything. That was my goal, at least. So when I wasn't. It wasn't the penalty per se that I was so excited about. It was the fact that somebody had passed you into turn one, and
I
you
immediately
immediately
went,
tried to pass them back into turn three.
yeah,
And instead of trying to size them up for the rest of the lap and overthink the move, you just went straight back for it. And to me, I mean, it's still to this day in my mind one of my biggest coaching wins.
yeah.
I thought, holy crap, this kid listened to me. This is awesome.
Well, and again, though, I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about a while ago in terms of like, there's so much more to like driver psychology, driver development than just meets the eye. And I think like that's one of the things that I can attest to on the program side of things is there's a physical side, which for me has been a lot of help over the years for a variety of different reasons. There's been the cognitive side that I think has helped a lot. And certainly, I mean, I won't lie, like in back and a lot of the other like stuff I take a lot of pride in and enjoy. But I think like half the battle is just being able to kind of personally understand kind of what you need as a driver and kind of have the tools provided to you. And it sometimes it's as simple as like just tell me like, man, do it. Don't th- don't think. Um,
Yeah, need to just make you wear Nike every day so you can see it in the mirror. Just do it.
real. But that's a good one. I always think of the relay races too because I
Yeah.
think we're three. I missed this year's one unfortunately, but before that we were 3 for 3. I feel like on each year something really funny happening.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there was one year where you were definitely the source of it.
it was legal,
Big
man.
end back shenanigans. Yeah.
It was legal.
Is
It was,
that's true. I didn't say you couldn't do it, so it's all good. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, the relays were definitely big, you know, they're very memorable in my mind. Um, you know, even going back to some of the earlier ones, you know, like you and T-Dub and Westwork and Logan all racing against each other on the ski and that sort of thing. You know, and honestly, I think there's a lot of moments outside the gym that definitely, you know, leave an impact. Like definitely get to live in my memory. And you know, that's, you know, guys like you graduating from high school and now college, and you know, I've been to a couple of guys' weddings, and you know, seeing Dane Cameron win the Rolex 24 after trying for 15 years and knowing how much that meant to him. You know, stuff like that is much bigger than, you know, anything that, you know, that happens in the facility outside of, you know, relays, of course.
And Justin Haley going after V's.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
that
Yeah.
that's my answer for this. That
Yep. Swatter in one hand, brake cleaner in the other. Let's get them.
yeah. That and the ping pong too. You know, I've been away from the ping pong game for a while now, but you know, I think
It's
it's
heating up. It's getting hot. We've somehow managed to turn Mason Walters into a ping pong fanatic. And he's like sitting at home watching YouTube videos on how to be better at ping pong. So it becomes an addiction fast.
is he winning against you guys?
He's yeah. He's playing some pretty solid pong these days.
High level ping pong player.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
getting there. He's definitely
Yeah.
getting there.
I couldn't hang 2 years ago with that iteration of ping pong. I fear I might be washed completely out of the ballpark at this point. But you know, before we wrap this up, Trey, I mean, I feel like we've gone through a lot in terms of the branding side of things. But as always, we like to give our guests, we like to give whoever comes on the show the open platform at the end to promote whatever they need to, whether it be PitFit, whether it be yourself, whether it be F1 testing takes, social media ideas, whatever. So I give the floor to you to kind of close out this awesome segment here.
Oh man, I don't know if anybody really is gonna want to listen to anything I got to say, but honestly, I appreciate what Kart Chaser has been doing for us recently, and I've been just insanely impressed with the level of, production that you guys put out every week. This is not something I could have ever even imagined having access to, back when I was karting. And for you guys to be able to do this for the community now, I think is really important. I mean, it's impressive, but it's also, I think, really valuable and really important to the state of karting and the future of karting. And this is a sport that I love so much. Motorsport obviously, but karting specifically, I absolutely love karting. Isn't a single thing on this planet that's more fun than being behind the wheel of a go-kart. And to see what you guys are doing for the sport and to see where the sport's going and the popularity that it has is just, it's awesome. And I'm really excited to see what the next 5-10 years has in store and what you guys have in store for the next, 5-10 years. And